morning, everyone. Happy Monday. I'm the Gray Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Monday, April 29th, 2024. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread? First card that we have for today is, we've got here the Hierophant, masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency. One of the things that we've been seeing that has been occurring right now, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, is that movement towards that deepening investment of commitment. Commitment is going to be the word of the day today. Masculine and feminine energy, as we saw, that deepening of the unpacking of a lot of the wounds that were potentially brought forth or carried into the divine union frequency. Now, this is having a different impact depending on whether you are coming into the divine union frequency or if you're in the heart of it right now. Why? Because we saw that these energies right now are doing a different work in relationality to how to navigate those wounds. Masculine and feminine energy that is coming into the divine union frequency right now. One of the things that we saw was occurring, particularly throughout that Scorpio full moon process, coming out of the eclipse season, coming out of the Mercury retrograde period, we're now direct, is that sense of deepening investment, deepening energetic commitments. And we saw that for a lot of the energy coming into the divine union frequency right now, that moment, that opportunity of the last few weeks may have led to a lot of energetic expansion in relationality to setting that path towards deepening of commitments. Now, one of the things that we saw was if there was something there that felt like it expanded during the eclipse cycle, there's been that intensity that has been almost creating that grounding force right now in a lot of that energy. Now, masculine and feminine that's doing this right now, this can be very triggering. We had a lot of warnings about making sure that you weren't allowing oneself to be triggered during that Scorpio full moon period specifically. Why? Because the best way I could articulate and identify the way to describe this is almost feeling like that energetic slingshot effect. We had that pulling back, if you will, of the Mercury retrograde. We had the intensity building up of the de-escalation of the eclipse cycle. And then to top it off, we had that really revelatory energy of the Scorpio full moon. Now, for the energy that's been moving forward right now into the heart of the divine union frequency, that intensity may have even led to some moments of recognizing and identifying past wounds, past traumas. And what is the energy that's coming into divine union frequency doing with that right now? They are navigating and managing those spaces and places with a high level degree of trepidation, caution, and sensitivity. Why? Because when we first encounter one another's abandonment wounds, when we find those moments of sensitivity, that the act and the gesture of care, if you will, is having that conscientiousness, pulling back energetically, if you will, that almost allows for that sense of recognizing and identifying spaces and places in relationality to something that you may have or you've been bearing within you that causes some level or degree of pain. Now, one of the things that we saw about this that may have felt a little bit tricky has to do with the fact that for feminine energy, that need to be able to articulate upon something was very high, where for masculine, that need to potentially withdraw from something was very high. So even at that moment of discovering or feeling one another's energetic wounds, if you will, having the mindfulness not only about how you might necessarily want to care or carry something, but almost being attentive to discovering how someone else best would prefer something to be navigated. That would almost allow, that was been allowing a lot of this energy right now that's moving into the divine union frequency to feel that sense of trust that is being built. So that ability to almost come into that space or place of seeing something or showing something to someone that others don't necessarily see, that is moving into the heart of intimacy. And those energies right now are building that trust and confidence in one another as they navigate forward on that. And what we see a lot energetically now is almost that moment of almost like putting an energetic pin in something, saying effectively, we're not going to necessarily address something now, but this is something that we can address later, is almost that further amplification of care. Because if these are spaces or places wherein you're affirming the commitment to navigate or work on something in the future, even that ability of keeping and maintaining a sense of future focus in relationality to navigating a difficult situation, that is that moment of the expression of of energetic commitment, because that's that moment that you're not necessarily just experiencing something in the present context, but you're almost talking about that sense of how to navigate something going forward. You're building that long view approach, if you will. Masculine and feminine energy in the heart of the divine union frequency. You've already effectively done this to a certain extent. This is something that you've been carrying with you for quite some time. You're probably very aware of one another's vulnerabilities. You're probably very aware of each other's abandonment wounds. The energy right now that's deep in the heart of the divine union frequency is moving more in that sense of addressing those topics, not necessarily staying cautious or holding back. It almost creates that exception to the rule, if you will, that occurs when we know each other and we build into that heart of intimacy, as it were, because it's those moments that allows for that amplification or that deepening of an energetic commitment, even for the energy at the heart of the divine union frequency right now, because that is navigating the energetic sensitivity place, that is going into that difficult place, that is having that difficult conversation, and recognizing and identifying that the commitment that you hold with one another is what allows for that type of strength or that level of energetic confidence as you do so. And it's not necessarily easy work. We see that for a lot of the energy in the heart of the divine union frequency right now, coming into that ability of navigating something very difficult, having that point of really energetically getting into the heart of something that may have been a wound that you've been carrying for quite some time. That is almost allowing for that amplification of energetic healing coming into spaces and places right now, because these are not energies that are recoiling from those moments. These are energies that are invested in going energetically deeper with one another as they proceed. While for masculine and feminine energy that is in separation right now, this is the energetic commitment to the self and the pathwork that you've been setting yourself on at this time. It has been a bit different depending on whether you align to masculine or feminine energy, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. For feminine energy, as we saw, a lot of this process right now that you have been navigating, if these were circumstances or situations wherein your own perspective of something is creating a new sense of clarity, if these are spaces or places where feminine moved away from something all for the sake of trying to heal or adjust the self, but recognizing and identifying or not seeing that source of change within the self, that is the feminine energy feeling the affirmation in terms of seeing something that they are healing from as opposed to something that they are healing within. And we see even now that that's building a lot of that energetic resolve in feminine energy to move forward with that type of energetic commitment. And one of the ways that we see that that's occurring right now for a lot of the energy in separation is coming out of any sense or space of feeling energetically hurt. We see even now that for a lot of that feminine energy, being able to let go of bitterness, being able to basically like almost purge, letting that Scorpio full moon be some of that energetic purging process, that ability to kind of take something that is energetically heavy, holding something that may have created or was starting to create an energetic wound, and instead allowing it to be a place or space that you're setting an energetic standard. We see even now that this is something that is allowing the feminine energy that sense of or ability to move forward, because that is the invested commitment that we see that a lot of the feminine energy is focusing on. And what is the focus of the feminine energy? The ideal commitment that they are aspiring and desiring to have with masculine energy. While for masculine energy right now in separation, if these are modalities or situations wherein you are also looking back with a sense of clarity and perspective, some of this might not necessarily be so much a moment that you feel like you're having to let go of bitterness, so much as it may feel like you're trying to let go of energetic regret. For a lot of the masculine energy, having that moment of having to look back at the past version of self and feeling like you have some notes for them, that can sometimes feel very overwhelming, because we see that both feminine and masculine are in that same modality right now. The only difference is the feminine energy doing so is looking back and they're feeling that sense of resentment or anger rising up. While for masculine, the ability to look back and feel that regret coming forward, both of these energies doing that work of converting that, of moving that through, For the feminine, it is that moment of not wanting to move forward with bitterness. For masculine, it's that moment of not wanting to move forward with regret, almost feeling like those energies pin one in place. So for the masculine, being able to recognize and identify that if there's some space or place that you're holding some kind of energetic regret on, being able to look at something, being able to recognize that the present is the place wherein we're able to make those changes, that we're able to make those adjustments. That is what is motivating and empowering a lot of the masculine energy, because regret combined with motivation is the wisdom. So for masculine energy, being able to take those energy, those feelings of regret, moving them into a space or place of a personal lesson, letting that build your own resolve in terms of what you can change and adapt and adjust within your own self as you go forward. That is also creating that same energy of conviction for the masculine in relationality to the energetic commitment that you aspire and desire for at this time. So we see that even now, these energies in separation on this path are very much like committed towards the energetic desire of commitment that they're aspiring and desiring to go forward with. For feminine, that is that resolve that we see. And for masculine, this is either coming into that healing modality of healing that energetic past commitment that you've seen that point of focusing the locationality on. Being able to see something and have that moment of observation is what's allowing you to drive forward into that healing space. Or this is masculine energy that is taking that same resolve and commitment and bringing it forward into those new energetic connections. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Second card in our 5-card spread for today is, we've got here our 5 of Cups in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy that is in separation. As I said, this is all that process. This is all that work of moving forward with that sense of amplification, of positivity and excitement, of doing all of that difficult work in terms of identifying and recognizing, if you will, what you effectively want to change. This is that sense of doing so. And it's not just doing so with a sense of frustration. It's almost doing it with that sense of easement. It's doing that with that sense of excitement, that amplification of positivity. So we see even now that this is a lot of energy that's feeling that, like I told you, that Mercury going direct is almost creating that space or place of not wanting to hesitate, really like being able to feel that positivity to a certain extent and letting that amplify. Now for the energy right now that is coming into the divine union frequency, this is also that energetic commitment. This is also that feeling of energetic positivity, because what occurs in spaces and places wherein you feel like you're having your vulnerabilities exposed, you're building into the heart of intimacy, you're potentially had some triggering conversations or something that had to be navigated because some kind of abandonment wound was expressed in relationality to experiencing something that triggered you. The ability to see something, to be able to articulate it instead of coming into that space of reacting, as it were, that is what's building that sense of energetic confidence in relationality to a lot of these energies moving deeper into the heart of the divine union frequency, because it's almost that expression of feeling like if someone is making something energetically easy, it's not because it's coincidental. It's because someone's already done that work on the self through which you feel like you're finding that point of alignment. So we see even now that the energy feeling that sense of relief is coming almost to an extent of almost experiencing those moments of truly being seen by another, not just in the point of your like positives, but also in those moments that you feel like those more sensitive parts of yourself, those parts that you don't necessarily show others, that acceptance moment, feeling that sense of energetic acceptance around those points. That is what is really amplifying that sense of deepening energetic commitment. And while it may feel heavy, it's also like that intensity that becomes the tie that binds. While for masculine and feminine energy that's coming into that's in the heart of the divine union frequency right now, this is all that work of being able to navigate something that was energetically sensitive and feeling that sense of energetic breakthrough. Having that moment that almost feels like the exception to the rule, if you will, being able to move forward to address something, almost coming into a state or space of something that feels tender, something that you almost would typically not navigate, something like, as we said, the energy that's coming into the divine union frequency, navigating something with kid gloves, taking off those gloves, if you will, being able to actually touch something, navigating and talking about those things, that ability to do so and the care by which one is energetically doing it, that is what is allowing for that deepening of the energetic connection, even in the heart of the divine union frequency right now, because that sense of building upon the exception to the energetic rule, that moment of saying, for you, I can, though in other spaces I couldn't. That is that feeling that allows for, even in the heart of the divine union frequency, even in a place and space where you feel like there is already so much of that intimacy that's being created. This is that deepening of the intimacy by going into those spaces and places that others cannot cross. Third card in our 5-card spread for today is, we've got here our Empress in its reversal. Now this is difficult. This is difficult energy. Right? This is, I know it's like, it feels a little clumsy. I'm going to put it that way. It's the best way to kind of describe it. For masculine and feminine energy, in the heart of the divine union frequency, this is where some of those abandonment wounds live. For feminine, it has to do with that appreciation of self, feeling that sense of confidence in one's own self. And we see even now that for a lot of the feminine energy, doing that type of unpacking, that is something that is happening right now via the counterpart energy, because that's that moment or that amplification of sensing energetically those spaces and places wherein you doubt yourself. What is the masculine energy doing in these moments to help facilitate the feminine being able to energetically heal these parts? Masculine energy doing that similar work of almost saying to the feminine, right? What is the masculine saying to the feminine in the heart of the divine union frequency? If this is a moment of feminine expressing their own doubts, their own fears, their own lack of confidence in spaces and places, potentially even addressing where that wound became real, like unpacking that. This is the masculine that's almost affirming to the feminine in these modalities, that point of saying to oneself, there's nothing about you that I don't see that is perfect. Imagine that you are energetically perfect, because that is that masculine energy that's saying to the feminine in the heart of the divine union frequency, even in those moments that you find yourself failing, I think you're energetically perfect. Masculine acting as the clear mirror to the feminine to help the feminine see themselves, even at their weakest, at their energetic best. That, to a certain extent, is really deepening the connection and the commitment to these energies as they go forward. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union frequency right now, this is that opposite moment. This isn't the masculine almost bringing the feminine forward and saying, I want you to see these parts of yourself. I want you to look at these parts of yourself that you don't typically look at, because I want you to see how beautiful they are. This is masculine and feminine keeping that sense of energetic caution there. This is that sense of stepping away from something to a certain extent, due to the fact that these are energies that are building that sense of commitment in relationality to how someone would prefer something energetically navigated. You can see, I know it's a little odd. I know it's like a little bit of a flip-flop, but this is because this is how we build that sense of energetic trust in relationality to intimacy. So for the energy coming into the divine union frequency, this is not that moment of touching something that someone does not desire to be touched or looked at. This is that moment that is almost the expression of the energetic mindfulness in relationality to how someone would like to approach something. But again, almost with that sense of saying, okay, that's fine, but later we'll try to work to heal that, right? So we see even now that for the feminine, the ability to even talk about these things might be a bit of that energetic expression, because that's the feminine energy that, again, is almost saying to the masculine, it's not that I want to move forward and explore an energetic wound, but I would like to talk about the source of it. I would like to express where it came from. I would like to express how it came to be. While for masculine, this is potentially that moment coming into divine union, almost saying to the feminine, I would prefer not to talk about those moments. I would prefer not to open up in that point of revelation in that way. And we see that the ability right now, what did we say is happening? The ability to be mindful of the difference between how one would energetically choose to approach something versus how someone else might choose to energetically approach something right now. That is the expression of building into the heart of intimacy, because that is almost that moment of seeing that mindfulness and care that feels like the sense of saying, how would you like me to take care of this? What would you like to do with this wound? It's not that we're not going to take care of that later, but for the time being, I want to be mindful about what feels best for you energetically. So we see even now, it's very intriguing because what's happening for the energy coming into the divine union frequency right now is almost the polar opposite of what's happening for energy at the heart of it. But they're both building upon the same idea or the same aspiration and goal. While for masculine and feminine energy that's in separation right now, this is a lot of that moment that feels, and I want to say it's going to feel a little bit more difficult or triggering today for the feminine energy, specifically because this is feminine energy. I told you, what did we see was happening? Even for the feminine energy over the last few days, that sense of empowerment, that sense of taking something that you were carrying as a wound and letting it become that moment of holding an energetic standard. We even recognize that for a lot of the feminine energy, there was an observational point that the feminine felt and saw, saying to themselves, I know it won't be as energetically easy every day. I know that it's almost going to come in waves, right? That's almost a feminine energy that was being mindful of their own self to such a degree that they're able to notice their own energetic or emotional patterns. So what is happening for the feminine in that modality? Feminine being almost able to see the spaces or places wherein they feel those energetic weakness points. That in itself is a lot of the breakthrough that we see that's coming in the energy of the feminine in separation, because that's a feminine energy that even if they have what we want to describe as like a bad day, if they have that day that they're feeling more hard on themselves, if they're having that day that they feel a little energetically low, this is the feminine energy reminding themselves and saying, if this is a hard day, it's only going to be a hard day. Like the adaptability of that energetic feeling to a certain extent is what is empowering a lot of the feminine. And why is that doing that? Because the feminine can almost remember a couple days ago when they were feeling just fine. Right? This was the moment just a couple days ago that the feminine was like, oh, I was ready to go. I was ready to move forward. I was ready to like push in. Today I feel back, that's the feminine energy almost remembering and looking and saying, this is progressive work. This isn't a race. This is a glacier effect. This is almost the feminine saying, I recognize that some days it's going to feel like a little bit like a glacier. And what do we see with a glacier? A glacier will take will move a couple inches forward and then it'll pull back. It'll move a couple inches forward and then it'll pull back. And that's the feminine energy in separation, almost affirming themselves and saying, it's okay to pull back a little bit. It's okay if I'm not feeling absolutely perfect on every day, so long as I see that progression that feels like I'm making energetic progress. While for masculine energy in separation right now, this is very much the same. This is very much the same frequency, though it has more to do with the movement, not in terms of finding oneself, but in the directionality of where you're approaching or where you're going. For a lot of the masculine energy in separation right now, this ability of wanting to come into energetic healing with the feminine, what's beautiful about it is it may feel like a lot of that path work that is coming through in terms of, again, looking at spaces or places potentially from the past. If you're holding on to regret, there's that moment that feels like that sense of being able to turn it into empowerment, being able to transform that regret into something that is motivating you forward. That is a masculine energy coming onto that path of wisdom, because regret combined with motivation is wisdom. So we see even now that for a lot of the masculine energy that is doing this type of work, that modality of looking back almost feels, and we even see this, masculine feeling to a certain extent, that sense of almost taking notes, intentionally looking back on the past towards the feminine and saying to oneself, how could I have served feminine? How could I have built a relationship with feminine better? How could I have modified something? If I found the feminine energy in a detriment point, what was I not giving the feminine that was not allowing them to be their fullest expression of feminine? Because we see even now that for the masculine, that sense of understanding that the feminine acts as a mirror to a certain extent to the masculine. This is a lot of the masculine on that healing journey, because this is the masculine almost looking towards yourself and saying, if I saw something that was vulnerable in the feminine, I need to ascertain if that was a vulnerability of my own that I was seeing expressed through the way the feminine was responding to me. So we see even now that for masculine energy, that ability to identify and recognize what those points were, taking those energetic notes, if you will, that is what's empowering your own sense of energetic commitment in relationality to what you feel like you can change or adapt. And there may even be, I have to stress, there may even be a lot of inquiry right now that masculine may be having towards feminine, even in separation, to get a better understanding of, again, the feminine perspective on something, trying to understand that, trying to really identify and articulate upon what the feminine was experiencing, all for the sake of coming into that adaptability and adjustment to reaffirm the commitment of what they can energetically change. So we see even now for a lot of the energy in separation, a lot of this work is allowing for new energetic breakthroughs. Fourth card in our 5-card spread for today is, we have here our Lovers card, and we love to see this card right now. Masculine and feminine energy, even in separation right now. That ability of looking at something, that ability of identifying and understanding, wanting to come into that point of change, wanting to come into that point of adaptability, that sense or that space of feeling like you're building into the commitment. This is feminine, even at a moment of feeling maybe like some of that low energy coming back in, doubting one's own self, doubting one's own sense of self. What is the feminine energy utilizing right now to help them feel committed to their path? Feminine energy is focusing, even in separation right now, on what that ideal partnership looks like, what the shape of it is, how it energetically feels. That is the feminine energy that even when they're doubting themselves or having that momentary feeling of doubt, it's not the amplification of holding themselves perpetually in that space. That is feminine energy that's almost allowing that motivation in relationality to what they believe they can have with the masculine as that benchmark, right? That is that horizon point for the feminine. And that's what the feminine energy is keeping and maintaining as their manifestation goal. While for masculine right now in separation, that same energetic commitment is coming through right now. And we see even now that for a lot of the masculine energy in separation, maintaining that same idea of imagining and visualizing what that ideal partnership is. That is that moment that, again, if you're feeling any of that energetic regret, if you will, that is that moment of looking back on past experiences with feminine to try to ascertain and understand what you can energetically do better to build forth towards feminine in a way that they feel like they can be their most robust, authentic expression of self. And for, again, I told you, for a lot of the masculine energy in separation right now, this could be a moment of approaching these circumstances and situations almost with a state or space of curiosity, right? Because we see that for a lot of the energy of the masculine, that sense of building forth to feminine, having the feminine feel that energetic confidence. That is that moment that a lot of the masculine energy is recognizing and identifying, allows for an energetic connection that feels like it's maintaining that higher energetic vibration, because that's that moment of masculine almost seeing that when the feminine like experiences those vulnerability points, it almost feels like they're just reflecting back to you what they're experiencing to a certain extent. So we see even now that for a lot of the masculine energy, that is that affirmation and commitment to be able to energetically do better towards the feminine that you feel will help navigate you towards that ideal energetic partnership. And so we see even now, like for the masculine energy, that feels to a certain extent like a path, I want to say, of energetic correction. And if you're seeing and recognizing these things, like take heart, because that's that moment that shows the fact that you're even looking at things from a different perspective. While for masculine and feminine energy that are coming into divine union right now, one of the things that we're seeing and experiencing has a lot to do with, for masculine and feminine energy right now, that is in the coming into divine union. That ability, that adaptability, that sense of being energetically mindful, because we see that a lot of these energies that are coming into divine union right now are experiencing and discovering those wounds. They're finding those hurts. They're finding those places. Potentially for feminine, these are spaces or places wherein the feminine's carrying forth into the divine union frequency wounds from the past. energetic wounds from the past that, again, effectively need to be addressed at some point, right? And even here, we see that for a lot of the energy of the feminine coming into divine union right now, the expansion point, the expression, the feminine almost like wanting to talk about them, not wanting to touch them, but almost wanting to talk about how they were created or how they were shaped. That, in a way, is almost a building that bridge to be able to better heal them in the future. But we see even now that that sense of energetic mindfulness, if you will, is what is allowing for that point of energetic deepening of the commitment, because that's the feminine that is feeling the relief of experiencing and showing and revealing a weakness or vulnerability to the masculine. And that's not the masculine taking it personally. That's not the masculine reacting in those moments. For the energy moving into divine union, the masculine almost holding space and treating the feminine's wounds almost like their own. That is the feminine energy that truly feels safe in an energetic connection, because that is the feminine that almost sees the masculine not like leaning in to a vulnerability point. That's a masculine that's being energetically mindful to be able to navigate forward in a way that makes the feminine feel safe and comfortable. So for a lot of the feminine energy feeling this can feel a little triggering as it occurs. Why is it triggering? Because when the feminine energy experiences moments where masculine is mindful, what does it remind them of? It reminds them of the spaces and places where masculine wasn't energetically mindful that may have created those wounds in the first place. While for masculine energy, that same moment of understanding, holding space, if you will, for the feminine's wounds, creating that moment of experiencing and seeing the feminine sensitivities. Is this a masculine that is reflecting that same sense of sensitivity back to the feminine? No. This is that moment that feels like a little bit of an energetic shift, because rather than allowing that to be a reactivity space, what is the masculine saying to the feminine? Even in your vulnerabilities, I find you energetically perfect. Even with those doubts and fears, you're energetically perfect. And so we see even now that this is the masculine energy that's doing that important work of building that security for the feminine, building that safe space, helping the feminine recognize that something that they see as a failure point within them, that's almost a masculine saying, that is so small, that is so non-necessary, that is so detrimentally insignificant in relationality to everything. Like, that's the masculine literally saying to the feminine, even at your points of feeling that sense of lowness, you are energetically perfect. That is that amplification of the feeling of compassion and love towards a circumstance or situation. Because what is the masculine seeing right now that is the vulnerability and weakness of the feminine? The doubt in their own self, the doubt in their own energetic confidence. And that is what the masculine is working to try to heal with the feminine. While as for, again, the energy at the heart of the divine union frequency right now, that ability, that recognition point, that working through the process, this is the opposite. These are not energies that are being sensitive and putting that point of care and attention towards something. These are energies in the heart of the divine union frequency that are going very deeply into those type of energetic connections. These are energies that are exploring those sensitive subjects. These are energies that are investing in that difficult work. For masculine, a lot of this is, again, navigating both the places and spaces wherein you may have felt like you were hurt from feminine in the past, right? Because this is how we have a lot of these wounds that are formed, these energetic wounds that happen in those moments that we lose that sense of confidence in the moments of intimacy with the other. So for masculine, this is that moment of potentially experiencing those spaces or places wherein you feel like you've energetically failed the feminine. Right? The masculine working through a lot of that process wherein the masculine has been potentially holding on to any feelings of not feeling worthy enough because they feel like there's that point of not being able to build that energetic trust with feminine. While for feminine, this is a lot of those moments of feeling like some kind of energetic wound was created in terms of not being energetically good enough for energy outside the self. So we see even now that a lot of this energy in the heart of the divine union frequency right now is potentially unpacking a lot of these sensitive areas. They're doing a lot of that work in terms of investigating and digging deeper into them. And it's triggering stuff. It's spaces and places that need to be handled and navigated with delicacy. But what do we see that is happening here? These are almost those moments that, like, there's these conversations or these circumstances that are arising that almost feels like that sense of creating the exception to the rule. Right? That's the energetic equivalent of saying, this is not technically something I would discuss. This is not technically a territory I would navigate. This is not technically something I like to address. But for you, I can. For you, I aspire to, because these are those energies that are doing that difficult work of trying to come into that highest version of self and wanting to leave as many of those abandonment wounds at the door as possible as they proceed forward. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now, fifth card in our 5-card spread for today is, we've got here, all for the sake of healing. And I need to stress this. This is the difference, right? When we talk about this work in terms of like navigating abandonment wounds, we talk about this work about like, working through these processes. I have to stress, these are, when we talk about these being sensitive subjects, that's that moment of, again, feeling that sense, something that you're not necessarily talking about, something that you don't necessarily navigate, right? That pulling back moment. And even here, we see that there's a delicacy and care that a lot of the energy coming into the divine union frequency is navigating in relationality to, working through those processes, coming into that sense of healing. Because effectively and energetically, a lot of the work that we see that these energies are doing right now in the heart of the divine union frequency has to do with the sense of aspiring and desiring to heal the self, not just for the self, but also for the energy of the counterpart. I told you, these energies are working very hard to like navigate and move into that highest version of self. And when we move into that highest version of self, we see ourselves in that place or space of energetic healing. So when we come into that point of healing, that's that moment that it's almost like that encouragement point. These are energies right now that are not going into those points trying to adjust and adapt or change one another. They're doing so with that level and degree of energetic care and certainty, almost having the permission, if you will, giving each other that energetic permission to be able to explore those places that are typically untouched. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into the divine union frequency right now, that ability to do so, that noticing, discovering those sensitivities, experiencing them, stepping away from them, navigating someone else's wounds almost as you would your own, but not the way you would necessarily navigate them, but being very energetically mindful as to how someone else would like something to be treated. That is the expansion point on building into the heart of trust that a lot of the energy coming into the divine union frequency is working on. So we see even now there's a delicacy here in relationality to some of the vulnerability that came through with that Scorpio full moon. But the difference and the intriguing part about it is for the energy coming into the divine union frequency right now, that's that pulling away moment, right? That shows the expression of care. While for masculine and feminine energy at the heart of the divine union frequency, that's that investigation, that deepening at this moment. While for masculine and feminine energy in separation right now, this is one of those days I want to say that it feels like, the thing about a healing journey is it's not linear, right? We've got good days, we've got bad days, we've got the positives, we've got the negatives. Even the feminine, we even saw that a couple days ago when feminine was feeling that sense of energetic confidence, right? That's the feminine energy. If they're not feeling energetically as confident today, that's the feminine energy that almost allows themselves that softness. Right? This is the feminine energy being energetically soft with themselves today, because that's the feminine energy almost reminding themselves and saying, it's okay if I feel vulnerable at times because I am energetically healing, right? And that's the feminine energy that doesn't feel like that's a step away from their aspiration or goal of building towards a relationship with masculine, that's ideal, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. This is the feminine energy that's almost giving themselves that bit of grace today in terms of identifying and saying, if something is hurting, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not healing. Sometimes something needs to hurt to heal. While for masculine, a lot of that same feeling of energetic commitment right now in relationality to that same pathwork. For a lot of the masculine energy right now, that moment of looking back and feeling some kind of twinge of regret, looking back and feeling like one has those energetic notes. What is masculine energy doing with that right now? Is this a masculine energy that's letting themselves get caught in that state or space of grief? No. This is masculine energy that's almost letting that fortify them. It's letting them build that energetic confidence point. It's letting them create that state or space of energetic strength, if you will, because these are the energy of the masculine, not wanting to be caught in that space of regret, recognizing that the present is the gift of having regret. It allows for that space of being able to change something at every moment. That is what's motivating a lot of the masculine energy right now, either again on that journey of self, making the necessary changes that you feel will move you in progress towards that divine union that you're aspiring and desiring, or coming into that path of energetic reconciliation. And where's that path of energetic reconciliation coming from right now? Trying to better understand the perspective of the feminine. By understanding the perspective of the feminine, by understanding what energetically went wrong, that is the masculine energy that's able to put something energetically right. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Hierophant in combination with our Five of Cups in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our High Priestess in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy, again, in separation. A little bit of a harder day for feminine today because as we saw, the healing journey is not linear. The healing journey is not linear. It's got a lot of fits and starts, a lot of going forward, a lot of going backwards. And we see even now that for feminine energy, that moment of questioning oneself, of doubting oneself, of coming into that space or place of feeling some kind of struggle between the head and the heart space right now. This could feel like there's a little bit of that discordant energy. Why? Because the feminine energy is moving through that process of looking, right? And this is very typical of feminine energy. That exploration point. And this is the work that the feminine is doing to stay on target. I want to put it that way. Why? Because is this feminine energy that kind of moves in that moment of making some kind of rash choice and going forward? No, this is a feminine energy that is continuing to energetically process, if you will, that's always doing that work in relationality to looking at something and trying to identify and recognize and say, is this the right direction? Is this the right direction? And so what is the feminine energy utilizing right now as their template to help them with that? This is the feminine energy that's building again on that sense of saying, I'm trying to manifest the partnership that is ideal for me. Right? That is literally how the feminine energy right now in separation is helping to stay on energetic target, even at moments that they're doubting their head and their heart space, right? That's the feminine energy looking at something and not letting that expression of the internal feelings on something steer them off of their own alignment. This is the feminine energy that is utilizing their sense of energetic commitment on the pathwork of what they're seeking, as opposed to allowing what they're feeling to energetically block their progress forward. So for masculine energy, this is that moment that may be feeling much more based on that sense of energetic inquiry, if you will. For a lot of the masculine energy, trying to come into that deepening understanding point. Not if there's masculine energy right now on a healing journey, experiencing moments where you may feel some energetic distance from a feminine. This isn't a moment that we're seeing to a certain extent that feels like an energetic rejection point. This is almost masculine energy looking at something with a different perspective, coming into that moment of curiosity, allowing that curiosity to almost help build that sense of understanding, because this is masculine energy that's now saying to themselves, if in separation, you're looking at something and saying, if the feminine has put up a wall, I want to understand why. If there's something that I'm doing that's creating that distance between us, this is masculine saying there must be a reason why. So the masculine's own ability to move into that space of energetic inquiry, to try to understand something to a better degree, that is what is allowing the masculine right now to have energetic breakthroughs, even in a moment of separation. Because again, that's not masculine feeling the breath of rejection around circumstances or situations wherein something with the feminine has created some kind of distance or blockage. This is the masculine energy that is almost approaching those with a sense of curiosity, with a sense of wanting to energetically understand. And so we see even now that type of path work may be leading to a lot of intense conversations for masculine, even in separation. While masculine and feminine energy that are coming into the divine union frequency right now, this is that moment or that experience that we're seeing to a certain extent, wherein again, if this is feminine energy and masculine that over the last few days had those points of like hitting one another's triggers, but not letting that pull them energetically apart, almost allowing for that sense of curiosity, that same sense of curiosity is at play here. But this is that moment that we almost see that is allowing for even, and I'll put it this way, even at the moment that the feminine energy experiences that, even at those moments where the feminine energy has those points of feeling the sense of a masculine, holding something with a level and degree of softness, of gentleness, of care. What happens to the feminine in those moments? It can feel very energetically triggering, right? Because the moment that you experience something like that, you have to remember the place that it wasn't, right? And so even now we see that for some of the feminine energy, having that moment, feeling that sense of easement, feeling the energetic commitment of someone navigating something in a mindful way, creating that space and being, like I said, energetically attentive to what you need, right? Much like the energy in separation. That's a moment for the feminine that can feel a little energy. It can feel very difficult because it almost feels like that echo effect in terms of remembering all the spaces and places that you didn't receive it. While for masculine energy right now, again, if this is a moment where you're seeing that feminine energy going through that process, having those moments of the expression of the doubts and fears coming up, is this a feminine energy that moves off of their own goal? Is this a feminine energy that moves off of their own trajectory? No, this is, again, what did we see with the feminine in separation? This is feminine energy in separation, that they don't allow their momentary feelings to move them off of their own energetic course. So we see even now for masculine energy that sees a feminine that works in that capacity, that does that type of energetic work, that is able to push through their own doubts and fears in relationality to their energetic commitments. That is a masculine that feels that strength and security of the feminine, because that's not a masculine energy. That's how the masculine feels like they're energetically protected from the feminine, because that's the masculine feeling that sense of a feminine that even when things are energetically difficult, they are able to keep that point of energetic resilience. So for masculine, this is a moment that navigating something energetically sensitive, but feeling that energetic strength as you do so, even with the feminine that you see is experiencing that sense of a lack of confidence, but they're still able to push forward in this way. That is a reaffirmation of masculine in terms of the work of coming into divine union as well, because these energies, again, they're not subjecting one another to how they're energetically feeling. They're doing that difficult work in like maintaining the strength of their commitment, even at moments that are difficult or bring forward some kind of sense of energetic weakness. While for masculine and feminine energy that is in the heart of the divine union frequency, this work, this is that moment that feels like the opposite. This is that moment that we saw, the sensitivity point, being able to navigate something carefully, right? The ability to like have a point of being able to like articulate on a sensitivity point as opposed to reacting to it. That is what is happening then for the energy coming into divine union. While for the energy that's in the heart of the divine union frequency, this is just moving straight into those spaces. This is just moving straight into the places and spaces that create those vulnerabilities, that create those weaknesses, because it's all that sense of, again, trying to navigate and build that confidence point. And that's hard. That's difficult. We even see here, these are spaces and places that masculine and feminine typically don't proceed, or they don't go, right? That's that moment that we're almost seeing is creating the exception to the rule, if you will. Because for masculine and feminine energy that are coming into that space or place of doing this, these are moments where you know each other's vulnerabilities. You can read each other like the back of another's, like the back of each other's hands. So the ability to address something, and only something that you or them can navigate, that is that moment that feels like the intensification point of commitment, even for energy at the heart of the divine union frequency. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Five of Cups in its reversal in combination with our Empress in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Two cards coming out right now. We've got here our Nine of Pentacles in combination with our Knight of Swords. When I say these are triggering circumstances, those are triggering situations, this is what I mean. That ability to navigate forward in something, to recognize or feel what it creates within you, but being able to maintain a point of energetic balance even as it occurs. What happens in those moments? That's that moment that feels like you've come into that deeper sense of energetic healing, because it's not the sense of not feeling that, it's not feeling what you want to do, but being able to stay grounded in that moment, if you will, being able to hold the space. That is what feels like that moment that almost allows for that point of success. For energy right now, in the heart of the divine union frequency, that is that moment that we see even now, almost like creates that expression of relief, right? Because these are energies, I got to stress here, the energy of the divine union is not in the energy in the divine union because it's easy. The energy in the divine union is committed to making something easy. And when we need to learn, when we want to make something energetically easy, it requires a lot of work. It requires a lot of difficulty. It requires a level and degree of resiliency, if you will, right? It feels a little counterintuitive because we see even now that is that moment. What happens in those moments where there's the thing that we want to do, the thing that we feel driven to do, but then we stay very effectively energetically grounded in relationality to like what we feel like we must do. That is that moment that almost feels like the expression point of, again, the energy focusing and having the same energetic priority. That is the energy of the divine union that prioritizes the partnership itself, the commitment itself, over how something might energetically make you feel in the moment, right? And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but that is the gift of energetic compassion, right? The ability to navigate forward and to do things. Not, again, and I have to say this, not oppositional to what you yourself aspire and desire, but holding forth on your own energetic commitment. That is the commitment. Like, this energy is committed to the commitment of healing. And that point, that moment, I know this can sound a little energetically confusing, but that moment of being able to navigate something that would typically render a different reaction in you and being able to hold firm in it, that is what allows for that moment of building into something that you care about, right? Because that's that moment that we build energetic trust. And we see even now it is difficult because we see that for the masculine energy, what happens when you hit those sensitive areas? What happens when you navigate into those spaces of places where the abandonment wounds are formed? It creates a reactivity. It creates a moment of wanting to energetically react. It creates that moment that you like feel that flare. I told you, it's like the sense of like, the best way to describe it is like the army that's hiding in the closet that comes running out, you know? But what's masculine doing right now? They're observing that energetic feeling as opposed to reacting to it. While for feminine, doubting one's own self, coming into those spaces of not feeling energetically good enough, feeling that sense of energetic, all of those feelings that come through in relationality to the abandonment wound, feeling all of that coming out to the surface here. Again, same situation, difficulties, hurdles, but what is happening? Is the feminine reacting? Is they're letting their emotions move them away from something? No, they're maintaining that point of energetic balance. These energies right now, staying very grounded, staying very energetically firm, if you will. That is the commitment of the energetic partnership, because that's that moment of like touching something that would typically create a moment of like reactivity, but almost allowing that moment, but still proceeding forward. That is what we see that the energy at the heart of divine union is doing right now energetically. While for energy coming into the divine union right now, no touchy touchy. No touchy touchy. What I just said is the opposite. What you're doing instead is telling someone, is explaining to someone what one could typically expect if that area or place is experienced, right? And a lot of that is via the communication of words. And this makes a lot of sense given the fact that we saw that for the mass feminine energy, that's that moment that feminine wanted to express it. Feminine wanted to talk about it. Feminine wanted a space or place to be able to articulate to the masculine what that was, so that the masculine could be sure to energetically avoid it. I told you, it's almost like showing each other their maps, if you will, being like, well, look, if you go over here, this is what you can expect. While for masculine, this is the same thing to a certain extent, but again, you're utilizing, you're navigating, you're also working through the feminine's map. You're also holding that place. And what is the masculine saying too? Masculine is almost saying, look how beautiful this is. Masculine's almost saying to the feminine, thank you for showing me where these vulnerabilities are. Not only am I going to steer clear of them, I'm going to protect them at all costs. I'm gonna build like a fence around them. I'm gonna do everything I can to try to show you how careful and conscientious I can be around these points. Like I told you, I'm gonna take this wound. And this is what's really beautiful about some of this right now that I'm seeing for the energy and the divine coming into divine union. Thank you for showing me those vulnerabilities. I'm gonna plant a garden there. That place you just showed me, that weakness, that place that you're sensitive about, I'm going to put a garden there. I'm going to start planting seeds there. I'm going to make it the most beautiful. I'm going to make that the thing that you love more than anything, right? Because that's that energy to a certain extent that, again, is that mindfulness, right? And it's not coming into that state or space of saying, like, I'm going to push forward. I'm going to, like, react. This is almost a masculine saying, I'm going to show you, like, how beautiful that is. But again, I'm not gonna touch you. I'm just gonna plant seeds all around it, if you will. And so we see that that's happening right now for a lot of the energy coming into the divine union frequency. And for feminine to experience that can almost feel a little energetically triggering, because to have a masculine energy that's so mindful to a certain extent, what does it remind you of? The place or space that may have caused the wound in the first place. Masculine and feminine energy that is in separation. For the energy in separation, this is a lot of work in terms of like planting your own garden, if you will. It's the same exact work almost as in planting a garden. So we see even now for masculine and feminine energy that are in separation, that modality, that work that we see to a certain extent, doing that type of work, building that sense of energetic healing. It is happening in different ways. For feminine energy specifically, for the feminine energy, what we effectively identify is this is feminine energy that is doing a lot of that work. If this was feminine energy that built that sense of energetic commitment over the last few days, continuing forward on that work, looking back on things, building that sense of energetic perspective, not letting oneself hold any degree of bitterness, but transforming that into positivity. For a lot of the feminine energy and separation, this may be a moment that may feel a little bit more difficult, right? But even here, we see and recognize that this is the feminine energy that almost identifies their own waves, if you will. Right? There's that moment that feels like that sense of energetic commitment coming into play, because what we see here is for feminine energy, that modality of purpose is one that is built on the idea or aspiration of the masculine energy that is motivated by their sense of energetic commitment, that isn't going to require the feminine to come into that space or place of doubt of self. Because we see even now that if this is a feminine energy that is looking back This is feminine energy that's looking back, and they're feeling reaffirmed in relationality to what they're energetically creating in the moment. And what they're experiencing to a certain extent is almost feeling like that reactivity space of re-experiencing the wound that may have been created at a moment from the past. So we see even now, it's not the fact that the feminine energy isn't still experiencing some of that energetic pain. We saw and recognized that for a lot of the feminine energy in this modality right now, having that expression point, feeling that energetic pain to a certain extent, it still hurts. But do you see the context through which the feminine is able to experience that right now and not taking it energetically personally? That's the feminine energy that's almost moving forward to a certain extent and saying, well, that still hurts, and being like, well, that still hurts because somebody hurt me, right? Like, that's the feminine. I was saying, yeah, of course it still hurts. Somebody hurt me. It's going to hurt. It's going to have those moments that it feels painful. So we see even now that there's something about the feminine being able to identify and recognize that even so, it's not the fact that they're not feeling it, but the feminine staying very focused in relationality to that path going forward. While for masculine energy right now, there's that moment that is built on that sense of, again, understanding. If there's something here that we're seeing, if this is masculine energy that feels that energetic distance between them and feminine, this is masculine that's proceeding forward towards the feminine to try to understand it. But what we appreciate here is this isn't the masculine coming into a state or space of being energetically reactive, right? This isn't the masculine coming forward and trying to hold that sense of frustration. This is masculine energy almost coming towards the feminine with a sense of deep invested curiosity to try to understand something in a better way, all for the sake of being able to fix or amend or refine that. And that's either masculine energy going back towards past situations metaphysically, like in a place of their own headspace, or potentially asking those energetic questions from past experiences, all for the sake of trying to heal the present moment. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Empress card in its reversal, in combination with our Lovers card in its upright. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Page of Pentacles in its upright. Masculine and feminine energy in separation right now. This is the feminine energy that's effectively, again, even at a moment that they're not necessarily feeling like this is a moment, the feminine, like even now, right? This is the feminine energy that's doing that process in separation. If they're doubting themselves, if they're questioning themselves, this is the feminine that is utilizing the path work in terms of what they're hoping to manifest with masculine, that is serving the energetic purpose in relationality to what the feminine is trying to move towards. And we see even now that for a lot of that feminine energy, that ability, that adaptability, that recognition point, if you will, this is the feminine energy that is building upon that sense of staying very grounded in the present to allow themselves to help navigate and heal from something that was still energetically hurting from the past. So where is this? This is almost the feminine energy utilizing that partnership or the possibility of that partnership as their horizon mark. And they're looking towards the masculine and saying to themselves, what do I need to see in the masculine that would create that space or place of me feeling that sense of energetic confidence towards what it is that I aspire and desire? This is the feminine energy that is almost saying, if I'm healing from something, it's because I wanted something from the masculine and they didn't bring it forth. So this is feminine feeling the hope in the present and saying, I know that that path work is ahead of me. I know that that directionality is that way. I don't need to, I can look back at the past and I can move and understand that I can be healing from the past, even as I pursue that path forward. So we see even now that for a lot of this energy, this is one of those moments that feminine energy is like, I want to say, this is actually interesting because we see even now, there's a lot of energy right now of feminine having new opportunities, having new energetic offers coming towards them right now. And if this is the feminine that is feeling that vulnerability point, even at a time that an energetic offer is coming towards them, This is the feminine energy that, again, is going through that pathwork of recognizing and feeling, to a certain extent, the energetic wound of having received something or receiving new, like building these new energetic offers, not having been able to see where they're effectively going, but keeping that aspirational point while simultaneously healing from past experiences wherein they may still be carrying some of these energetic wounds. So we see even now that this could just be a lot of the feminine energy being a little sensitive and energetically cautious as they go forward from this point, because this is the feminine energy that is still holding on to a lot of that past that's informing their movement forwards. While for masculine energy in separation right now, this is the masculine energy that's coming towards feminine. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. And what we effectively see right now for a lot of the feminine and the masculine energy coming towards the feminine is, again, a lot of this coming from a place or space of energetic curiosity. We even saw that for a lot of the masculine energy right now, over the last few days, building upon that pathwork of purpose, really amplifying the direction that you're hoping and aspiring to go. This is leading masculine to be able to go towards feminine, even in separation right now, with that sense of recognition in relationality to being able to tell them what you effectively energetically want, but also moving towards them if the feminine is more cautious with a sense of curiosity, not letting that feel so much like a moment of energetic rejection, but almost trying to come towards someone with a sense of better understanding, right? And that ability to see something, ability, if they're seeing anything here that feels like a sensitivity point towards feminine, not assuming it's directed towards you, but almost approaching it with a sense of curiosity. That's what's allowing for a lot of breakthroughs right now in relationality to potential new partnerships that are forming for energy that's in separation. It's starting with questions. It's starting with curiosity. It's starting with questions. It's starting with curiosity. It's starting with that sense of being able to understand what someone seeks in order to be able to provide it. And so we see even now, like these are feeling like both of these energies in separation, doing this in a very subtle, like small, tentative way, those baby steps, if you will, that feel like that sense of mindfulness in terms of talking towards the desired energetic connection. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, that is coming into divine union, this energetic work, this ability to like see and recognize the sensitive areas of the other, but not only that, not to just treat them the way that you would typically treat them for yourself, but being very energetically mindful about how someone else desires and aspires something to be treated. That again is that modality that we see that for a lot of the energy right now coming into divine union, that feels like that sense of truly trusting in each other, because that's that moment of understanding that it's not necessarily that point that everything is energetically perfect, but it's almost that moment of recognizing the way another can be very sensitive and mindful about how something needs to be addressed. And we see even now, like there's that moment of again, curiosity, right? Looking at each other's maps, understanding something to a greater degree, all for the sake of being able to build towards circumstances or situations that allow for greater harmony. So we see even now, if these are moments right now of feminine coming into divine union with masculine, and feminine is communicating their own doubts, their own fears, what is the masculine energy doing with that? Is the masculine taking that energetically personally? Is that the masculine saying that sounds like it's a you problem? No, this is masculine energy saying, tell me more. I want to understand. Let me understand, because then I'm going to show you. I'm going to act as that clear mirror for you, to truly show you that what you're seeing there isn't necessarily the true expression of yourself. That is that energetic wound that you're carrying. And we see even now, like that's almost the masculine saying to feminine, we're going to put a little pin in that. We're going to address that later. While for masculine, if these were sensitivity areas here, if this is a feminine, that again, if like the feminine like had a moment of wanting to talk about something, if masculine was like, it's a sensitive subject to me, I don't like to talk about it, and the feminine's able to kind of step back there, this is the masculine that feels that security and safety from the feminine, because that's the feminine being, again, energetically mindful about how the masculine would like to energetically approach something, that creates that sense of confidence in masculine to know that when feminine's almost saying to masculine, when you're energetically ready, know that I'm here to receive it. Right? So these energies, being very mindful of not just recognizing how they want to address something, but how the other would like something addressed that shows that sense of commitment energetically. While the energy right now coming into divine union is doing a lot of the opposite. This is that moment of energetic unpacking, if you will. Right? If these were these sensitive spaces and places, these are those moments that we're almost seeing that is happening right now for a lot of the energy coming into divine union that is allowing for that energetic expansion point. It is allowing for that breakthrough. It is allowing the exception to the rule, being able to address something that is typically not an area that can be addressed, not working towards something that feels like it is difficult, but doing so, building that sense of energetic confidence. It's almost feeling like that deeper level of healing, as it were, because that's that moment that, again, that's that moment in the divine union where it feels like that sensitivity point becomes the exception to the rule, becomes those places and spaces and saying, for you I can, for you I will. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now, between our Lover's card in combination with our Three of Swords in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with Strength, masculine and feminine energy. This is that moment that we see for a lot of the energy in the heart of the divine union frequency. That ability to be adaptable, that ability to like move deeper into something, that ability to like navigate sensitive areas right now. It feels like the strengthening of a lot of the union energy, because we see even now that for the energy in the divine union, the ability to touch something that typically can't be touched, the ability to navigate something that is sensitive, where you may have carried a wound in the first place, one's own ability to almost, have that point. It almost feels like that sense of something getting energetically easier, right? Because it's that moment that you're able to do something that you would typically not be able to do, that almost feels like that expression or expansion point of having that sense of energetic strength coming into play. For masculine and feminine energy that is in the heart of the divine union frequency, that adaptability, that energetic strength, if you will, that's that feeling of building that energetic bond. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into the divine union frequency, the ability to step back from something, the ability to navigate away from something, the ability to put some kind of energetic distance there. That is the sense of energetic care, because that is that moment of, again, one is pulling backwards, one is building that sense of trust in navigating something with delicacy, while the other has reached that point of energetic delicacy enough that they can push forward. Masculine and feminine energy in separation right now. For a lot of the energy in separation, doing this type of work, building upon this circumstances and situations. This is a lot of the feminine energy in separation coming into a lot of energetic healing. And that healing, it's not necessarily easy. We see it here. It's requiring that level and degree of work. And even now, these are moments that if the feminine energy feels more energetically sensitive, that's that moment that the feminine energy is building upon that feeling of energetic strength. Because what we effectively see at this time is this is the feminine energy that is building in the strength and confidence of themselves in terms of navigating forward with what they aspire and desire to have with masculine. Bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. That creates that sense of strength, creates that sense of energetic stability, creates that sense of energetic support. So we see even now that for a lot of this energy doing that work right now, while it may feel like tender, it also feels like that tenderness that's creating that sense of resiliency for a lot of the feminine energy and separation right now. While for masculine energy right now, that sense of inquisitiveness, that sense of deeper understanding, that exploration, if you will, of coming into the heart of something, that is masculine energy. That is also doing that energetic work, that's building upon that sense of energetic strength, because that's that moment that if you're feeling that vulnerability in the feminine, you're not reacting to it. You're almost proceeding forward with a sense of energetic inquisitiveness that also feels like you yourself are healing, because that is the strength of, again, building upon confidence to such an extent that you're not taking the feminine energy's caution as something that feels like it is reactionary to you, but you're almost approaching it with a curiosity and understanding better, all for the sense of trying to come into that deeper state of healing. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now, between our High Priestess in its reversal in combination with our Knight of Swords and our Nine of Pentacles. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Queen of Cups. Masculine and feminine energy in separation right now. What we're effectively seeing that's really beautiful is, again, for a lot of this feminine energy right now in separation, a lot of this work that we're effectively seeing, this feels to a great degree like that moment of finding energetic balance, right? And how is the feminine energy navigating and feeling that sense of energetic balance? This is the feminine energy that's doing that work of balancing between the head and the heart space. This is the feminine energy that's continuing forward in that way, continuing on that process of questioning the self, but then feeling that affirmation or feeling that energetic support, if you will, in relationality to feeling that grounded energy in terms of discovering and building upon that sense of the present moment. So even now, what we see here is that for a lot of the feminine energy in this modality right now, you know, if there's anything coming into play here in reactivity and like in relationality to masculine, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. This is almost the feminine energy to a certain extent, you know, creating that sense of identifying and recognizing, if in separation, that moment of feeling the affirmation that then the masculine energy is ready to heal. The masculine energy will proceed forward towards the feminine. And for feminine energy, that's a moment that even if the feminine is questioning their head and their heart space, that's reaffirming to the feminine and saying to a certain extent, the feminine is not in that space or place of feeling like they should have to have that need of wanting to energetically seek something out, right? There's a lot of this feminine energy almost like just staying very grounded in their emotions right now, because this is the feminine energy that knows how they want the masculine energy to approach them. They want to see that intentionality. They want to see that conviction of purpose. They want to see the energy of the masculine that knows what they energetically want from the feminine, and being able to build forward in that way. That is what's like almost reaffirming for a lot of the feminine energy right now in relationality to almost, if there's some kind of experiences from the past wherein they feel like they're energetically healing, the feminine energy is almost looking at the directionality of that past expression of masculine to say, is that a masculine that was trying to like cultivate a garden with me? Is that a masculine that was trying to grow something? Or was that masculine more in that reactivity space? Was that masculine more that was moving towards their own needs and their own desires? Because even now, that's the feminine energy working through a lot of that energetic healing and almost, again, amplifying the feeling of experiencing the difference between what they feel like they're working with versus what they feel like they're healing from. While for masculine energy right now in separation, a lot of this path work coming into play has to do with your own sense of energetic curiosity in relationality to your own experiences with feminine at this time. And we see even now, what's interesting about this masculine is this is that moment that we see that almost feels, I want to say, like that energetic conviction coming towards you. Like we see even now, if these are spaces and places masculine in the past where you feel like you may have been too, like I want to say, too like energetically forceful towards feminine, or you were feeling that like, again, that energetic excitement, This is almost the masculine energy moving towards the feminine right now from a state of energetic curiosity to be able to almost amplify and to be like I want to say like almost coming into a correction point, as it were. Like almost saying like, I want to make sure that you like letting that be a moment of, I want to say, helping someone recognize and identify, like if there's something here that you feel like you are energetically misunderstood on. Like I feel like in a way a lot of this is like masculine energy saying like trying to build clarity from feminine in separation, while also trying to articulate what brought that about. And even now, this could be a little bit of the masculine energy having a little bit of this like feeling. This is giving like a little bit of masculine energy and separation, going through some kind of like a bit of a chicken and an egg feeling, if you will. Like trying to look at something and say like, well, when did something energetically start? If there was a reactivity space in me, was there something that they did? Well, then there was something that I did. And this is almost the masculine energy that's almost reaffirming to themselves if you're in separation and saying, you know, even in those moments that something wasn't going the way that you would aspire and desire, there's always that ability to energetically pause, right? There's always that moment to be able to like move forward in a way that feels like it's energetically productive here. So I see even now that for a lot of the masculine energy in this modality right now, this could be feeling like I feel like there's a lot of conversation here, or a lot of work in terms of trying to get a better understanding of someone's perspective in order to facilitate that and utilize that as something, as a point of productivity going forward, to be able to either heal something or be able to take that as some kind of energetic lesson to carry forward with you as you proceed forward on your own journey. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union right now, a lot of this energy coming into divine union, what we're effectively seeing, has to do with that sense of recognizing and identifying, again, how the other would ideally desire something to be necessarily energetically treated. Because we see even now for both masculine and feminine energy, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. These are sensitive areas. These are sensitive subjects. Do you see this here? We've got a lot of this energy here that is almost learning about one another in the process of coming into divine union, that identification of each other's maps, that learning of those sensitivities. And that is that moment energetically that we see creates that possibility of building forth in a way that feels like it's energetically productive, because these are the energies that are coming into divine union that are learning to understand each other's vulnerabilities or their energetic soft spots, all for the sake of navigating them in such a way that feels like there's that act of energetic protection, being energetically careful, being energetically conscientious, that allows for that feeling of mindfulness, because this is that sense of doing that difficult work of creating those like sensitivity areas for the sake of building a beautiful like experience together, right? And so we see even now for feminine to see a masculine navigating that sense with that same sense of care. That's the feminine immediately feeling that sense of the deepening of an energetic commitment. While for masculine, seeing a feminine that's able to articulate on those areas as opposed to reacting towards them, that is masculine also feeling that safety and security of the feminine that is able to protect the masculine from their own energetic emotions, right? While for masculine and feminine energy in the heart of the divine union right now, this is a lot of that work that we see that is the amplification of this is the unpacking. This is actually almost like increasing the space of like what you have together by being able to heal those places and spaces that feel energetically sensitive, that feel energetically soft. Having that type of work almost it almost feels like the expansion of like your spiritual territory to a certain extent by healing those places and spaces that are often creating those vulnerabilities, those weaknesses, right? That's that moment of looking at something and saying, I know that you're sensitive about something here, but is this something that can be healed? Because that ability to energetically heal something creates that sense of positivity going forward. It creates that landscape of possibility. So we see even now a lot of the energy that is coming into the divine union frequency, that's in the heart of the divine union frequency, is doing the opposite. It's not creating those territories of saying like that's that non-possible place. This is that moment that feels like the energetic expansion into something that feels like that deepening energetic connection. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between, hold on a minute, where were we? I've got the cards all combined here. Yeah, I believe we had between our Knight of Swords, yes, and our Nine of Pentacles and our Page of Pentacles. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Five of Pentacles in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy in the heart of the divine union frequency. What did I tell you is the goal right now? It's all about healing these abandonment wounds. It's not the fact that these aren't sensitive areas. It's not the fact, this is the reason that this is energetically difficult to a certain extent is specifically because these are energetically soft spots. These are places that are very vulnerable. What are these energies doing right now? Being able to, what happens when you're able to navigate something that is energetically vulnerable? You build that sense of resilience, right? You build that ability of energetic expansion. You build that moment that feels empowering in the places or spaces that feel most vulnerable. That's that moment that we almost see the expansion point for a lot of the energy in the divine union frequency. That's like the articulation of being able to do something that is very energetically difficult, right? That's why we see that even now this feels like a little bit of that strength test. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, this is that modality of not necessarily going forward and like navigating those hurdles right now. You are discovering them. You are recognizing them. You are learning about them. You are doing that work in building a better sense of self via the connection to the other in relationality to what you're creating. Because that's that moment of taking someone's vulnerabilities and saying, I will energetically protect these at all costs. While for masculine and feminine energy that is in separation right now, this is that equivalent or that work, if you will, in recognizing and identifying that healing these within the self, right? For a lot of the feminine energy in separation right now, that adaptability point, that ability to recognize, to see something, to be able to put that sense of investment towards something, this is the feminine energy that is healing their own abandonment wounds at this time, because this is the feminine energy that is being very grounded and focused in relationality to how the masculine energy interacts and experiences things with them. We see even now, this is feminine energy that may be either navigating circumstances in separation right now that feels like a lot of that like forcefulness from some masculine energy, while also we see feminine having that moment that may feel more like that new masculine energy connections that are offering that sense of understanding, right? So we see even now for a lot of the feminine energy doing this type of work, that ability of identifying and recognizing something to a certain degree and being able to feel that energetic expansion point, being able to feel and recognize. Like this is that moment that feminine doesn't feel like, again, so much as like feminine is not taking the reactivity point of masculine as a point of change, so much as it is the feminine is just energetically observing how the masculine energy moves towards the feminine to indicate to the feminine what they can expect from the masculine. right? And so that is the feminine energy to a certain extent that feels that sense of confidence. They feel that sense of energetic easement because that's a feminine that's not taking the reactivity point of the masculine personally. They're just energetically observing it. And that's what's effectively helping a lot of the feminine energy heal at this time. While for masculine energy, this is that modality that we see even now. You know, for a lot of the masculine energy in separation right now, your own ability to navigate and manage your own reactivity point, like that feels like a lot of that healing gesture, because we see even now that for a lot of the masculine in separation right now, that ability of, I want to say that moment, like I told you, feeling that energetic flare up, like, you know, like almost like I told you, like having that feeling, I told you, like when like when like the army comes running out of the closet and it's not supposed to be there, right? Rather than coming into that state of just reacting to it, but almost just being able to observe your own reactivity point. What happens at that moment? That's you healing your abandonment wound, because you're not just reacting the way that you feel like energetically you feel it like you are. You're putting that consideration point in. You're putting that energetic patience in. You're utilizing that path work of discernment that is helping to almost regulate and allow for something that may have felt triggering in the past to be a place of productivity going forward, because you're being more, you're moving towards something not from a point of reactivity, but more from a place of inquiry, more from a place of energetic curiosity. So we see even now that that's also an expression of a lot of healing as well. Masculine, continuing to get clarification on these cards right now, between our Page of Pentacles in combination with our Strength card. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our King of Cups. Masculine and feminine energy in separation. What occurs, masculine, what occurs when you're able to come towards things and approach them with a sense of energetic curiosity? What happens when you're able to look at something and you're able to feel that energetic balance point? It creates that state or space that you feel like you can be energetically strong, energetically resilient for the feminine. Specifically because that is a moment that your own energetic like confidence comes into play. So we see even now that for a lot of the masculine energy, like on this energetic journey, this is like one of those moments of really journeying within the self. Finding that sense of energetic balance creates that moment that feels stabilizing. It feels supportive, because that's that moment that you're able to give that forth towards the feminine, right? That's that moment that you amplify and recognize that feeling of having found that energetic emotional control of yourself, if you will, that then becomes a gift to those around you. While for feminine right now in separation, this is what feminine is effectively energetically manifesting or desiring to manifest from the masculine. The masculine energy that has learned to be able to control the self, to be able to control one's own emotional landscape to such an experience that it's not the fact that the masculine is feeling their emotions and that isn't creating a place of strength. This is the feminine that sees masculine, that is in control of their own emotions, that is able to navigate forward and to create that moment of productivity. That for the feminine, that feels like the gift that the masculine offers the feminine in separation. So we see even now, this is feminine energy that's almost utilizing that path of discernment to recognize the masculine energy that has controlled their own emotions to such an extent that they're able to lead forward in this way. So we see even now that both of these energies in separation, kind of like, I want to say, like energetically seeking out one another. Masculine going through this journey of self to be able to offer that to the feminine, feminine seeking that out in the masculine. Well, for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, This is that energetic equivalent, if you will, of recognizing and identifying. This is the energy in coming into divine union that is effectively or energetically found that. For the energy coming into divine union right now, what occurs when feminine shows the masculine their vulnerability, shows them their soft spots, and masculine doesn't react to it, doesn't take it personally, but almost says, I will protect those like my own. That is the feminine feeling the security and stability of masculine energy that has that sense of, again, emotional understanding, that sensitivity becomes the feeling of energetic security. So even now we see that that's the feminine energy feeling that sense of energetic confidence. While for masculine energy, seeing a feminine that is able to articulate on their vulnerabilities, being able to amplify what they need from the masculine as opposed to being reactive in those moments. That is the masculine that effectively and energetically feels that the feminine is protecting the masculine, because that's the masculine almost looks at the feminine and says, it is easy with you because you do that work within the self to identify what needs to change within the self versus what I can energetically change that makes that point of energetic easement going forward. So you see even now that these energies coming into divine union, that is that strength that they see in the other. That's almost like the gift that the gift that keeps giving, if you will. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, that is in the heart of the divine union, this is that sense of having built that energetic strength enough. This is that feeling of having worked through those wounds. This is the process of having experienced those things. This is that sense of energetic strength that is brought to play, that is effectively amplifying to a certain degree the sense and being ready to navigate something in a way that allows for the exception to the rule, particularly in relationality to any of the old wounds that you may have carried prior to entering the divine union frequency. So we see even now, these are energies that have built that sense of energetic trust enough that are able to proceed forward in those spaces and places, specifically because the partnerships have built that level or degree of energetic strength, as it were. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Queen of Cups in combination with our Five of Pentacles in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Emperor in its reversal. This isn't easy stuff. It's not easy. We see it even here. Masculine energy right now, even in the heart of the divine union frequency. Do you see some of these difficulties? Do you see some of these hurdles? We have even now that moment that feels energetically weak. It feels exhausted. It feels these are not spaces. You can't go in to heal an abandonment wound in a way that's going to feel like it's energetically supported. You remember how we talked about a lot of the energy coming into the divine union frequency, doing that work over the last few days and almost like amplifying to one another, saying, I don't know how I'm going to energetically react. I don't know what that'll look like. We see even now that for a lot of that energy, that sense of uncertainty, like that is that moment that we see even now can feel a little energetically overwhelming, because when we go towards healing abandonment wounds, it's like it's going towards the thing that feels like it is its most vulnerable, right? We're allowing those vulnerabilities to come into play. We're experiencing them and expressing them. So we see even now that for a lot of the energy that is coming into that is in the heart of the divine union frequency, this is like, I want to say, it's a little stop and go is the best way I can describe it, right? Because this is that moment that, it needs to be, it's like delicate, right? It's that delicate work. But what is happening right now for a lot of the energy in the heart of the divine union frequency, that vulnerability point is becoming the energetic tie that binds, right? The ability to both be feeling that, the ability to have that sense of fragility Like that's that moment that, like, if you're both experiencing it, if you're having that sense, like that's that moment that feels like the amplification of weakness that almost becomes that sense of strength, because it is the amplification of feeling like you are not energetically alone in the process of doing so, right? That sense of doing something and having the confidence that someone else is experiencing it with you, that's what's motivating a lot of the energy forward in this way. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, this is that moment that, again, that is that feeling of the deepening of intimacy by experiencing moments of someone seeing those sides of you that others don't see, seeing those vulnerabilities, seeing those weaknesses. Are these energies reacting to those moments as someone discovers those points? No. They're being fortified through them. They're building that sense of energetic confidence, if you will. So we see even now that for a lot of the energy moving in that modality, being able to navigate forward in that way, it feels like the expansion point, because that is that moment of, again, looking towards someone, seeing what they would consider a flaw or a fault, and someone saying, I find you perfect in that moment. I don't see anything wrong with that. I can eagerly hold that and cherish it as though it were my own. So we see even now a lot of that energy doing that work is building into the heart of intimacy, because it's a moment that doesn't make you feel like you have to be perfect to enter divine union. It just means that moment of feeling completely accepted, flaws and all, because someone looks toward the other and says, I don't see any flaws there. While for masculine and feminine energy in separation right now, that is that feeling of feminine and masculine working through a lot of their abandonment wounds. For feminine energy, this is the feminine energy having that moment of observing their own abandonment wound within the self. And some of that has to do with that sense of aspiring and desiring the energy of the masculine to come towards the feminine with that sense of energetic strength and security. And what's difficult for the feminine in this modality, if in separation, this is the feminine energy. I told you what happens when the feminine energy externalizes that wound. What happens when the feminine takes that moment where they're feeling like they're judging themselves for the masculine not coming towards them in the way that they would aspire and desire, and externalizes it? That's the feminine energy having to heal the wound of saying, I have to accept things sometimes as they are. I can't energetically change them. And that moment of energetic acceptance is the point that the feminine starts to heal the abandonment wound, because it's the moment that the feminine doesn't look at masculine not approaching feminine as a point of personal weakness. That's not the feminine energy not feeling like they're not energetically good enough. That's the feminine energy just accepting that that masculine isn't their counterpart energy. That's the feminine just saying, if the masculine isn't approaching me with that sense of energetic confidence, that is either the masculine energy that doesn't desire me as the energetic counterpart, or that is the masculine energy that lacks their own confidence to become, like, to be in alignment with me. Like, that's the feminine almost saying to a certain extent, it's not the fact that the masculine doesn't desire the feminine. That's the feminine almost saying, we're not in energetic alignment, right? And that's the feminine energy healing that by saying, I want the energy that's in alignment with me. I'm not trying to change my energy to match my alignment. That's the feminine saying, when the energy is in alignment with me, I will recognize it because it will be in alignment, and I just need to discern when it's not. While for masculine energy in separation, this is coming through that process of potentially rising to the energetic challenge in relationality to who you aspire to be, your energetic counterpart. So for masculine energy right now, this is the masculine remembering and saying, if I want an emotionally balanced feminine, I have to be emotionally balanced. If I want a feminine energy that, is intimate, like that is going to be expressive and intimate with me, I need to be expressive and intimate intimate with the feminine. This is the masculine energy going on that pathwork of separation and recognizing and identifying and saying, anything that I aspire and desire to see in the feminine, I must first embody, because only through embodying those characteristics am I able to match, like to show the feminine that I am someone who has energetically done that work. I'm someone who's not regulated or reacting to my abandonment wounds all the time. I have those moments where I experience them, and my ability not to be reactive in those moments is how I heal my connection with feminine, because the more I'm able to heal those within myself, the more I'm able to build a more intimate, secure bond with the feminine that truly feels that they are safe when I am with them. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Five of Pentacles in its reversal in combination with our King of Cups in its upright. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Two of Pentacles. Masculine and feminine energy in separation right now. What's really lovely about this to a certain extent is this is masculine energy. If you're doing this work, you know, it's hard. It's hard. It's energetically difficult, right? Because what we're seeing here to a certain extent is for masculine energy doing this type of work, what we're identifying to a certain extent is it feels like a little bit of an energetic, I want to say like an energetic balancing act, if you will. It can often feel like, you know, you're balancing between those points, because that moment or that expression of like, how do I explain this? Feeling that sense or having that sense of centering oneself. It may feel like there's a lot of different emotions that are happening within you at every point. And that moment or that modality of being able to navigate forward and feel like, you know, having that point, it always feels like a little bit of a balancing act, right? Because a lot of it feels like, in a way, you have to like hold it in, or you have to like learn to like energetically retain something. But what we see to a certain extent for a lot of the masculine energy doing this work is this is almost like that difficult task of recognizing and identifying that we don't ever completely, truly heal our abandonment wounds, right? We can't negotiate away from them to a certain extent. There's always those aspects of self that are difficult to navigate. And what we effectively see to a certain extent energetically here is that for a lot of that work, this is the masculine, like discovering one's abandonment wound. It doesn't mean like it goes away. It doesn't like, oh, there it is, it disappears. It's more about that moment of feeling to a certain extent, like seeing something and saying, now that I observe it, I can move forward with it, right? Now that I see it, it's something that I can manage. I can navigate. I don't have to be, I am not, this is like almost the masculine in separation saying, I am not my abandonment wound. I am not my reactivity point. I am the point through which I can heal that in terms of my own ability to control it. While for masculine, and that's the masculine saying, when I do so, I become more of a safe space for others. I become a safe space for others in so much as I can do that for my own self. While for feminine, and this is either masculine that's like, you know, like almost again, like energetically showing, like this is a masculine energy in separation that's almost like energetically showing the feminine the ability to do so, right? Yeah, and again, potentially even from that sense of like moving towards feminine with that sense of inquiry, as it were. While for masculine energy, well, for feminine energy, this is feminine energy, seeing masculine, having to have that moment, going through that energetic process to a certain extent, feminine energy identifying and recognizing and seeing masculine that has that ability. This is feminine energy, even in separation now, potentially making connections towards masculine, and either seeing masculine that has that energetic ability, or having those conversations of someone who's doing that, working through that, going through those processes. And so we see even now, that's the feminine energy. Like, I think I see a lot of the feminine energy right now, like in separation, feeling like, again, like almost like inhabiting two worlds, because this is a space or place where they're healing from the past, while they're also seeing a lot of that new energetic connection coming through. So we see even now that for a lot of the feminine energy, this is that moment that almost feels like the amplification of positivity, because this is also feminine, that, you know, utilizing your own powers of energetic discernment is what is helping you find what feels like that ideal counterpart energy for you. But the difference for the feminine now is not that sense of feeling like you need to transform the masculine into it. You're just utilizing your powers of observation to feel like if there's something there that feels like there is that harmonic equivalence, if you will. Masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union right now. A lot of this energy coming into divine union is doing this work in managing each other's abandonment wounds, right? Seeing those moments of intimacy, experiencing those vulnerabilities. What are they doing? They're holding each other's. They're navigating forward. They're utilizing, they're holding that in a way. They're being mindful, right? And that's the difference between, again, the energy building that sense of trust, of discernment coming into divine union, saying, I can hold this with mine, versus the energy right now that is in the heart of the divine union, that is actively working to heal those same wounds, that's actively working to heal those same spaces and places, that are moving into those spaces, all for the sense of juggling and saying, is this something that is energetically necessary? Is there something here that is serving that energetic purpose? Or is there something here that can be released, all for the sake of coming into a deeper sense of ideal, like working through those points of pathwork of intimacy? Final card for today's read, between the Emperor in its reversal and our Two of Pentacles. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming. Whoop! We got 3 cards coming out right now. We're going to read all of them because that's what we do. We've got here the Justice card in its reversal, the 8 of Wands in its reversal, but right there in the center, we have our World card. So, masculine and feminine energy right now in the divine union frequency. This is what occurs when we navigate difficult subjects. This is what occurs when we do that hard path work, right? Because I told you, for a lot of the energy that is coming, that's in the heart of the divine union frequency, there's that moment of recognizing and addressing whatever feels like it's out of balance, right? And there's that moment, that the ability to focus on that, the ability to look at something. I told you this all started with a lot of that eclipse process, that amplification point that led to like that deepening of energetic inquiry to a certain extent. What we see that is happening here is a lot of this energy working through anything that feels like it is not in balance, to be able to navigate and say, is this something that is a limitation? Is this something that is energetically serving? Or is there something about that imbalance that is blocking pathwork here? And this ability to effectively identify what feels like it is serving energetically versus what is creating too much of that disharmony and balance. That is why we see so much of the energy in the divine union navigating forward in such a way that there's almost that there's that deepening of the energetic commitment in relationality to wanting to feel that like holistic sense of trying to make something move in a more harmonic way. So we see even now that this is a lot of that energy in the divine union frequency, doing that deep investment in terms of uncovering what feels like it is creating those abrupt moments or those imbalances, all for the sake of creating greater easement. While for masculine and feminine energy, that is coming into divine union, right? For the energy coming into the divine union, this is the opposite to a certain extent, because these are the moments that you may be discovering, you may be recognizing, you may be seeing each other's imbalances. You may be seeing those moments that feel like a little bit of that like cautionary space or place, a place that like is hard for someone to navigate. But what are these energies doing? They're being energetically mindful about them. They're being very conscientious, but that's not a moment of saying like that's something that you're going to hold on to indefinitely. Right? That is almost that moment that feels like, much like we see for the energy in the heart of the divine union frequency, of saying that is something that we should ideally try to work on with time. And the element of feeling like there's circumstances or things that you can say to one another and say, we will work on that with time, that becomes the expansion point in feeling like you're building towards a true deep commitment, because specifically that's those moments of looking at something and saying, this is the energetic commitment in terms of recognizing not only the work that you're doing in the present, but the work that you will continue to try to navigate going forward, right? While for masculine and feminine energy that is in separation, this energetic equivalent is navigating that sense of energetic productivity. For both masculine and feminine. For feminine, this is a pathwork of acceptance, right? Particularly around anything from the past that wasn't moving with you at this time. This is the feminine energy, again, observing the imbalance, not trying to go back to energetically correct it, just kind of coming to that space of accepting and almost saying to themselves, anything that's in alignment to the feminine will find the feminine. That's the feminine almost saying like, what is for me will be for me. I won't have to force it. It'll just feel like it is natural, right? And the feminine saying, I'm going to be mindful of the energy that feels like it's not moving the way that I want to be. And that's the feminine taking that pathwork of energetic discernment, if you will. Well, for masculine energy right now, this is masculine energy, doing that difficult pathwork in terms of addressing whatever feels like there was an energetic blockage from the past, recognizing any of the imbalances, asking yourself, is that something that I was experiencing, or is that something I can actually change within the self? And what's beautiful here is if there's masculine that's uncovering something and saying, oh, that was something I was externalizing, but actually my reactivity space created that response. This is the masculine that's like pulling inwards and saying, I can change those things. I can adapt the self. The way I address the world is how the world will appear to me. So my own ability to navigate that is how I can energetically heal something. So you see even now that these energies in separation, they're coming into deep healing. Feminine by externalizing, not internalizing everything. And masculine by internalizing, not externalizing everything. Bottom of the deck on this reading right now is 7 of Cups in its reversal. So more than anything, that amplification point of choice coming into play right now. And it's difficult for masculine and feminine energy to a certain extent. What we're effectively seeing is that sense of navigating choices right now. What we see, and this is having a different impact depending on where you are in the frequencies, okay? Because for masculine and feminine energy, that is at the heart of the divine union frequency, that ability of doing something in a way that you haven't before. There's almost uncertainty there, right? Because I told you that even a lot of those energies moving in this way, that sense of navigating the unknown, if you will, it feels very expansive because it's almost that moment that feels like a possibility of choice that opens up, given the fact that you haven't addressed something in this way. So we see now like that uncertainty in terms of how to experience something. Like you can't articulate on something that you haven't energetically experienced. You kind of have to take a little bit of that wait and see approach on things. While for masculine and feminine energy, coming into divine union, that moment of holding space for how someone wants to approach a wound or sensitivity point, it's not necessarily how you would necessarily desire to, because we saw that there was something a little oppositional, if you will, between how the feminine wanted to navigate something versus how the masculine wanted to navigate something. So we see even here that for a lot of the energy in that modality right now, that ability of looking at someone and feeling that sense of wanting to address something in a certain way, but being mindful of how they want to tackle it, it doesn't feel so much like the expression of being completely content and satisfied with that, because we see even now that if these are energies that are experiencing each other's sensitivities, there's almost this like investment of effort in wanting to go back at some point to energetically heal that, right? Because that's that moment of feeling like you're carrying a wound into the divine union frequency that wasn't, like wanting to uncover it to say, like, is this necessary or is this something that can be released? While for masculine and feminine energy that is in separation, this modality of identifying and feeling the amplification of choice is very high right now. For feminine, again, that pathwork of energetic discernment creates that space or place of the feminine. Again, I want to kind of say the feminine almost looking at things with a narrowing of choice, right? This is the feminine energy becoming more discerning, which almost feels like to a certain extent their choices are narrowing. But again, that's the feminine energy that is trying to just be very conscientious to a certain extent in relationality to just accepting the fact that like not all masculine energy aspires and desires for divine union. And that's almost the feminine just like recognizing and understanding that, which again almost feels like that narrowing of the choice. While for masculine energy in separation right now, this modality of potentially looking back at something and wanting to energetically change it, that is almost feeling like the expression of choice. Because this is that moment that for the masculine energy, being able to feel that amplification, that like that moment of recognizing something that you can adjust for the self, I told you, is almost that moment of looking at the past version of self and wishing that you could energetically change something. But again, just remembering that like if you're feeling like that, the beauty of the present is that's the place where all things become possible. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video, and if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber name at the point of payment. Please keep in mind, if you book a private reading with me, it is a 2-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. I'd also like to remind you guys, if you haven't joined us yet, we have begun our monthly tarot classes over on my Substack, graystrega.substack.com. Each month we are choosing a tarot card and focusing our education on understanding that card. The last class that we had was based on the Fool card, and the next class we will be having is going to be based on the Magician. That class is going to be on May 15th at 6 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. Eastern. If you missed the first class, never fear, because your subscription to my Substack will grant you access to all the previous classes, all of the videos of those classes, and the related coursework. On top of that classwork, your subscription will also grant you access to a one-on-one chat with me where you can ask any questions in relation to anything that we are studying. Also, if you become a founding member to my Substack, included in your subscription will also be a free 1-hour mentorship reading with me, wherein we can review where you are on your own personal tarot journey, and I can give you any insight and relationality to what I feel like would be best to concentrate your studies on, as well as how I feel like you can best utilize the classes going forward. I tried to create these classes specifically to be useful to both the absolute brand new reader as well as the seasoned practitioner. So again, I hope that you'll join me. Thank you to everybody who already has. And even if you are not going to become a paid subscriber to my Substack, I would encourage you to follow me there to stay abreast of any new offerings, course offering plans that we have for the future. Again, that's graystrega.substack.com. I hope you guys have an absolutely beautiful day. Please take care of yourselves. Please take care of each other. And we will do this again